Hey Sunrise, it's Andrew here with your small group questions for this week as we dive into Genesis 26, 1 through 33. Now in this, we're going to see a parallel in the life of Isaac to the life of Abraham. But into this parallel, we're going to see the differences very clearly. So as you work through this text, there's two big stories here that will parallel. One is a famine. The second is the fear of the people of the land stealing Isaac's wife, just as Abraham feared the stealing of Sarah. And so into this text, this becomes our parallels, but we'll also see how they end in very different ways. So the first one, as you work into it, how does the famine act differently in this text than it did for Abraham? What is it that God does through the famine here in establishing Isaac as the next patriarch, as the blessed son? And so how do we see the fulfillment of what God's already said, and how does this look forward to what God is going to do in the life of Isaac? And again, it's the only real story that has to do with Isaac alone. He is the central figure in this text, unlike in many of the other ones he is featured in as a background character. This is predominantly who Isaac is and his life summarized. So we see the blessing, until we see the fear that still exists for the people of the land. And how does God bring a solution to that? So we saw visions and dreams in Abraham with Pharaoh and Abimelech. This one, the solution's a little different. It's much more common. And what's the significance of that? What does that teach us about Isaac? And what does that also show us about how God is working in his life here? And then from this, we see the continual growth of the family. So the growth of possessions, the growth of herds, we see the growing of Isaac's family. The reestablishment in many ways of the blessings that exist. So how does this parallel Abraham's life now seen in Isaac, that continual work of God in each generation? And so as you move through, we have these different interactions that will come about throughout this text with Isaac and Abimelech and with the Philistine herdsmen and all the different servants. And each step along the way, the key that we continually want to unpack is that God continues to be with him. Even in some of these hardships, even when things aren't going his way, he trusts in the Lord, not his circumstances. And so that kind of brings us all the way through to the end with the blessing of the water. Again, as they dig these wells, continue to reestablish what Abraham had done before. We see Isaac mirroring that reestablishment of the things that God has done. And so with that promise that the land will be fruitful. And so in the end, we have the reestablishment of Beersheba, this land where we have found water, which will be a key point moving forward into Exodus as well, and to the people of God throughout Scripture. Beersheba is a key land. We've already seen it throughout Genesis, but now we kind of get the foundation of its name and its history. So as you work through this text, we continue to see the blessing of God reiterated time and time again, that God is with Isaac. Why is it so important that we have that foundation as we move forward into our text, and even a little bit as we look backwards? Hope you'll spend some time in the text. See you on Sunday as we hear the word proclaimed and as we dissect these things for the purpose of glorifying God and growing our relationship in our small groups. Hope you guys have a great week. See you on Sunday.